This is the Fargo Public Library Subcommittee regarding board orientation. And let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Mary Batchelor. Who else is on the phone?
Rachel Steenholt. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Rachel Steenholt.
This is Jan Alford Stewart calling in by the telephone.
Hi, Jan.
Hello.
This is
Anyone else
Whitney
on the line?
on phone.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
This is Whitney. I just arrived on the phone.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead and approve the order of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
One thing, I kind of botched the date on the top. It's actually Tuesday, October 27th, not Wednesday, the 7th of October. So
Well,
as amended, you might say,
thank you. I totally missed that.
which is good.
Yes.
I missed it too. This is Jan. I move to approve as amended.
Rachel, second.
All in favor of approving the order of the amended agenda, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried. Next is approving the minutes of the August 25th meeting.
Move to approve. This is Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there a second? Was that? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes of the August 25th meeting, say aye.
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 Who was the
Anyone
second?
opposed?
Who was the second?
Jan.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. On to our next item of business, which is old business. And it is review the North Dakota Public Library Trustee Manual, identified portions.
Right. I sent out kind of looking at per the discussion at the last meeting, and I sent those out that I went through the whole manual, kind of looking at it. And I thought what was important is, obviously, if the board needed more discussion on certain topics in a timely fashion, kind of what the kind of things such as capital planning, strategic planning, and these kinds of things, that the board could certainly utilize the manual in those discussions. Some of the other things per the table of contents, are really covered, i.e. policy and just the maturity of the organization. Certainly when we look at legal issues, we have the support of the city attorney's office and other things, in terms of budget and that kind of thing. We have the city finance department, and obviously the things that I chose to provide to the committee were, kind of more general information. I think a new board member would be helpful. And you saw them to be intellectual freedom and censorship was one item, and the other one is the board's relationship with staff. So based on the kind of general criteria, kind of first in the door, because it's an orientation kind of situation, and also looking at kind of what we've developed so far in terms of the overall packet, and you can see that per the information that went out from Betsy, that it is rather significant at this point, and didn't want to overdo it, certainly. So you have before you, two items kind of drawn from the North Dakota trustee manual to kind of go with our board orientation, but certainly not saying that if we came into like a capital campaign discussion that can't be utilized per the North Dakota manual. So that was kind of my thought process behind the two items that have been provided, kind of drawn out of the manual for the board orientation packet. So That was my thought process there.
Okay, thanks for giving that background, Tim. I will agree with you that these seem like really good pieces of, background information for new board members, as well as not being too, getting down in the weeds, I guess you could say, because I will agree with you when I saw our new orientation packet that was emailed over. It's very extensive, and I know a big part of that is the organizational timeline that was recently added, which is extremely extensive and comprehensive, it looks like. So thank you very much to the staff members that put that together, because that looks like it was an undertaking. But, with the most recent board packet included and the information on the history of the library and all that, it's a pretty lengthy document, which I think is great. There's lots of information for people to, one, just understand their role, as well as some background on the library and the library's role. But I do want to be sensitive to the fact that we don't want to give people an overwhelming amount of information. And I also think that, the really important things are taken out and presented separately outside of the trustee manual. But as you said, we can always refer back to the trustee manual as a resource should the need arise based on whatever, projects we're working on or initiatives. So that's my thought. I read through the relationship with library staff. I think that is crystal clear and a very easy to understand, how that works, combined with the organizational chart and then the grid of responsibilities, which are both in the orientation packet. That should be clear definition of what our role is vis-a-vis the staff. And then, of course, the intellectual freedom and censorship section is very important as a library. So I am in support of adding these two pieces to the packet, and I would think at that point we would have a pretty comprehensive board packet, but I am certainly interested in what others think. So whoever has any comments, please speak up.
This is Whitney. I have a few questions and comments for the others on the committee. Let's see. Where should I start? Maybe like the history seems a little in depth. I know I was the one to request the history, but it seems like a lot of information. Do you think we should have this full history in the packet, or what are everyone's thoughts on the history?
It is. This is Rachel. It is a lot. Trying to count the number of pages. And I agree with Mary that whoever did this put in a lot of work, and kudos to them. I don't know if there's a way to just streamline that and have highlights. But it is.
What I might say is, I think it's one of those things that now that you guys see it, it's available. And if a new board member was to ask about it, it could be provided. That maybe, it's not part of the orientation packet, but you guys know that have worked on this, know that it exists. And I can have a sensitivity as the director, if I'm meeting with these people, is kind of like there's the standard orientation packet, and maybe, kind of an a la carte additions if they ask about it. And that way, everybody's different in terms of what they're really interested in. History, I have a history background. But yeah, I agree. It's kind of adding pages to this whole situation. So it would seem to me is that it would be good kind of looking at the list of what's in the packet right now and say, like the history, where it is important, it's organizational, kind of background and what have you, but I could have that kind of set aside from the standard orientation pack, but if I get questions about it, say, you know what, I got something for you, I can send you the entire kit and caboodle history of the organization. So I think there's, it's not a all or nothing kind of situation. It's just that, we evaluated it, we looked at it, as a history, it's good, but in terms of looking at an orientation pack, it might be a bit much. So if that makes sense to folks, I'm more than happy to entertain that kind of option in regards to the history.
I think instead of this full one in here, it might be nice just to have these are when the 3 branches opened kind of thing, to make sure people know that there are 3 branches and this is when they're open and this is where they're located, instead of having the full thing. So people might not know about the 3 branches and when they opened, kind of that, it's like a shortened, just a little bit of information about each one. Or maybe you could just go over that in the orientation. So I don't think the whole thing needs to be in there. It was really fun to read. So someone like me might enjoy this, but I can see not everyone wanting this whole thing in the packet.
Does our annual report include the basic information on the 3 branches, where they're located, when they opened, anything like that?
I don't know if it, well, certainly this past one really concentrated on the 10-year anniversary opening of Maine, but certainly the basic information of the 3 locations, where they're located, hours, contacts, all that kind of good stuff is in there, certainly.
This is Jan. The only comment I'd like to share is, 2 comments. I'm going to start off by saying, wow, this is wonderful. I don't think I've read anything like this before. So kudos to your team for pulling this off. I guess I'm thinking when we say the word packet, I'm envisioning a paper heavy packet. And the beauty, of course, in today's world is that, all of our resources are available online. So I'm thinking, if we could, have a virtual document with this complete history. And in fact, it might even be something that goes up on the library's web page about the history of the library, because this is outstanding. This is an outstanding collection of history that many people will want to look at, glance at. Maybe they won't want to read every sentence of it, but it's too valuable to put it on a shelf and forget about it.
I can tell you that, Betsy and I have been working on this, and certainly we're trying to not keep like a paper copy of the board packet, but more of an electronic, updatable versions of all documents that obviously this committee will identify to be part of it. And certainly those will be communicated electronically in the future to new board members, and kind of going.
So this would be like a link you could touch on. So when we think of, is this thing, what was it, 77 pages long? Rather than that, maybe it's links here and there, and you can go to a link and not spend much time on it, or as much time as you like. I do think it's an important piece, and I'm not averse to whatever we choose to do with it, but it is a very valuable piece of history.
Agreed. Whitney, did you have other comments?
Yes, I do. Surprise. This is Whitney again. I am not seeing a place that has Tim's contact information in the packet. It's mainly his email, because I saw all of ours. And then just welcoming people to email him if they have any questions, unless just the initial email. I mean, maybe he could have that at the bottom of his bio is please just email me if you have any questions about, finance, anything, and then he could then also have his contact there.
I thought in the letter, I thought I put my phone number, the welcome letter.
Let me double check.
Okay. Well, I can change the letter.
If that's, I don't know if that's your direct line. Are you 1472? Is that your direct? That's at the bottom of the sheet.
I'll put my direct line on there. An email.
Okay.
In the letter.
That'd be perfect. Okay, yeah, I see that. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Okay, great. So that was one thing. And then the other thing I had a question on was on including the board's relationship with library staff. If we want to update, if there's anything to update in the document, it says we have a grievance procedure aligned in board policy. Do we have a grievance procedure? Remind me if we do, if anyone knows.
There's a grievance procedure, obviously, as a city department that goes through the HR department, as all city employees do, which is standard across all city departments. So I would say that as a city department, that per HR, we fall under city HR. So it would be, obviously, if there was a situation that it would go through HR, which obviously the board would be part of that conversation. I mean, we can alter this to reference that relationship per the board's relationship with library staff. And if you want a paragraph in there kind of relating to how city human resources reacts, or, their procedure in that regard, that's fine.
Yeah, you can even reference whatever, because this is for the board. Yeah, whatever, I don't know, what do others think on that?
I think, if there's not a board policy, we should change it maybe to City of Fargo policy or something along those lines, City of Fargo HR policy. I don't think we need to outline the whole grievance procedure. I mean, if somebody is a staff member, I would assume that they would know what that procedure is, or at least who to talk to. And if they don't, and they did come to us, we could say, contact the City of Fargo HR person or whatever. But I agree that it shouldn't say board policy if there's not a board policy out there. So
I agree with that change, Mary. I think that's clear enough. I just wanted to make sure. In case we had one.
I'll make that change.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll change, the board does not act on complaints from the staff except through a grievance procedure outlined in the City of Fargo HR policy. Then we'll strike board policy and replace it with City of Fargo HR policy. Anything else from you, Whitney?
I did I'm looking back at my notes when I read the trustee manual, which was quite a while ago. And the only one, the section that I liked, I think because of one paragraph. I kind of like the whole thing. It's on page 15 of the trustee manual. It's called Working with the Library Director. And because I didn't know, this is my first board, the director is responsible to the board as a whole, but not responsible to each board member individually. That's one of the last paragraphs. And I think it just describes, if someone's new to being on boards, how to work with a director of an organization. And I found that valuable, but if people don't, we can just reference page 15 in the trustee manual. I'm totally fine with that. But I thought that was a really good description of how to work with a director of an organization and a library director in particular.
I think that's a good point, and I actually also, that kind of segues into a comment that I had about evaluating the library director, which is on the very next page 16. That is a conversation that we're going to be having in a separate subcommittee, and we meet this week for the first time. But I think that, whether it's something that you get only if you're on the director annual review subcommittee, or or that sort of thing, or maybe it's something that everybody gets in the board orientation packet, but we could consider including some information on how we evaluate the director in our role as, you know, the boss of the director. But maybe more directly to Whitney's point, I mean, should we consider a page on the board's relationship with the library director, like we have one here with the board's relationship with the library staff? Or do we think that it's just already included in that grid of responsibilities?
I could pull something together between page 15 and page 16 and send it out as an addition.
Then again, well, okay, because I'm looking at the grid of responsibilities. So we have duties and responsibilities of the board and library director. And we have library board, communicate with the library director. So I don't know if that, again, I want to be sensitive to not making this overwhelming or unnecessarily long. But, you know, maybe that grid covers what people need to know, and then we can just refer them to the trustee manual. I mean, maybe we could even put something at the bottom of this duties and responsibilities grid that says, you know, for more in-depth discussion of the role of these, you know, two entities, consult the North Dakota trustee manual. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on including something like that.
This is Jan. Yeah, I kind of thought it was covered pretty well in the grid, being that short synopsis, but it just now dawns on me in this entire document, does it refer to the North Dakota Trustees Manual?
I didn't notice that. I thought that, but that, yeah, we should include that somewhere, because if we are
that's the last item in the index. It's the last item, or not?
Right, the two elements that Tim identified for us, the board's relationship with library staff and the intellectual freedom and censorship.
On the, and if you remember, we went through the grid, you guys went through the grid pretty thoroughly. And at the bottom of our current draft of that, it says adapted from the North Dakota Public Library Trustee Manual. So it is referenced that its origin, but it's been adapted as discussed by the committee, essentially. And certainly as a portion of the orientation packet. So the way I see it is that once you guys are set on the packet as a whole, obviously it'll be going to the full board, at which point the board will approve your recommendation, at which point it's kind of the approval date, the initial approval date of the current context, and then we kind of go forward and kind of adjust from there. So, but as of right now, it has adapted from the North Dakota Public Library Trustee Manual per the duties and responsibilities grid as you guys went through it.
Okay.
Is it okay if I ask another? This is Whitney again.
Yep. Go ahead.
Do we want? I know in other packets I saw they had references to more in-depth reading, and so there are a few sections in the trustee manual I think would be good for people to read if they want more information. Like there's a section on about the updating and creating a policy, what the board's responsibility is, that I thought was really good. Do we want to have a section where we reference the sections that we want them that could be instructive for them, or should we just leave it at that and just send the trustee packet virtually and they can read over what they would enjoy reading?
Can you repeat specifically what you thought was worth referring to? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, should we have a sheet that references the trustee manual and says these sections would be helpful as you get on the board? Like one about I really like the policy making section of the manual, and even let's see, we could even, like, working with the director, we could reference that. If we have like a few sections that we think would, and then there's a section on the Friends of the Library, because I didn't realize that existed when I got on the board or how that worked, and so that section was very informative to me. So there are a few sections, I think, for anyone who's coming on to a library board in particular that would be helpful. But if we just want to send the trustee manual instead of doing that and just say read to your content, we could also do that instead. So.
I think at this point we're kind of grabbing chunks and this and that here and there and what have you. I think what would be good is to really nail down our part, or, you know, the FPL board orientation packet as it refers to us, and then also, you know, saying, being a North Dakota library, here's kind of the full, you know, kind of on the front end, we'd really like you to be familiar with the orientation packet, because that's kind of the first things first. To really get an in-depth view of it, we have this very well put together, lengthy but helpful North Dakota Public Library Trustee Manual, you know, specifically related to North Dakota libraries, if that helps. And, you know, it's kind of like, instead of just cutting the whole thing up in little pieces and then reassembling it somewhere else, it might be good to kind of define the FBL packet, and then also have this as kind of the go-to thing going forward for greater reference or research or what have you. That's just a thought.
I'm in support of that, because I think that everybody's going to have different questions, different interests, different things they're going to be curious about. And I think if we just do a very intentional job of pointing out the existence of the manual and that it can answer questions, but you should always contact Tim with questions, and he can help maybe guide people to the correct part of the manual or whatever. I tend to agree with Tim that I'd rather do that than you know, piece together several different sections of it, because who knows what people are interested in, and it's a great resource.
And it's electronically available via the state library website, so which is handy as well. So it's not, oh, you got to, you know, print this out and it's a PDF or what have you. But so.
Jan or Rachel, do you have any thoughts on that, or any thoughts on anything else?
Jan here, I totally agree. Having a link to the full product would be agreeable with me.
Rachel, same. Yeah, and then that would cut just the that would save 25 pages from the yeah, but it's wonderful, and I did like Jan's point about making that available on the website for people to poke around if they would like, because it was great. So
Well,
yep, nothing new to add.
So I think I just want to be clear, because I'm trying to kind of keep notes and contribute. We got adjustments to the board's relationship with staff, kind of identifying it as City of Fargo policy, HR policy, as a change, and we're good with that. And the intellectual freedom and censorship, we feel good about that being included. The history, did we want to have like a one-page kind of basic, kind of say the current Fargo Public Library has 3 locations, boom, boom, boom. Here's when they opened, here's where they are. Is that kind of in line what you're saying and kind of in place of the lengthy history? Feel comfortable with that?
Rachel, yes.
Yes, this is Lady.
Okay. So we're good. That's easy enough to put together. It's not an issue. Then obviously the history will continue to grow and it will continue to exist and that kind of thing. So we're set on that. I need to get my email and phone number in the letter, that welcome letter. I think that covers it so far.
Yes, I think so, as well as just making a link to the full North Dakota manual available. Those are the things I identified too.
Okay.
Did we have the North Dakota Open Records Guide in there before?
That was something that came up that folks were asking for. So I went and talked to the attorney's office, and that's what they provided me, is kind of, however, lawyers can make things short and extensive all at the same time, but that's what we got.
Yeah, there's lots of statutory references, that's for sure. No, I think that's great. I think it's really helpful, just kind of at a glance. I mean, both high-level overview as well as very in-depth statutory references and specific things. So I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, you read how they define meetings. It's very specific. Yes. How things can become a meeting very, very quickly, and it's important to know.
Yeah, I think that's a great addition. I found that very useful. Anything else from anyone? So in terms of things that are on the list that we need to discuss further, or additional items to include, or anything to take out? Doesn't sound like it. So we have reviewed the North Dakota Public Library Trustee Manual identified portions, and I think at this point, should we entertain a motion to approve the board orientation packet, table of contents, if you will,
as amended,
with the items identified as amended? Okay. Well, I will entertain a motion to approve the board orientation packet table of contents as amended.
This is Rachel. I'll do the motion to approve, and just saying also thanks to Whitney for having this idea, and thanks to Tim and all the staff that have put all this together. I think it's come out really well. Thanks to Jan. I know you're not on the board anymore, but you've continued to come to these meetings and see this process through. That's awesome. And Mary, you've obviously been there every step of the way as well. So that was a long motion to approve, but I think it's also worth saying good job to everyone.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for your service.
This is Jan. I wholeheartedly support the comments of you both, actually. Want to thank you all for letting me participate to this extent, and I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote then. All in favor of approving the board orientation packet table of contents as amended, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, motion carries and the new table of contents is approved.
what I'll do is, per the discussion, I'll make the adjustments as discussed and get those out to the committee as just one final peek. And obviously then, maybe Mary and I can meet prior to the board meeting and walk through it one more time. I don't know if we need the whole, if it's up to you guys if you want to have another meeting, but the idea of bringing it to we can put it on the agenda for the next full board meeting in that regard. So
I think that's a good idea. I don't think we all need to meet again. I think we've hashed it out very well and thoroughly, and there's some great things added that I think will be really helpful for new board members. So thank you everyone for all your great insights and questions and background and perspective and all that. Really appreciate it. So I don't think there's new business. Is there any public there, Tim? Okay. We don't have a next regular meeting, so I will adjourn.